Okay, well, for all of those of you in ELRC 7334, we're going to go through each of these PowerPoints, but starting here in Chapter 1. So, Chapter 1, you should be seeing on your screen right now, is all about an introduction to career development and interventions. So, a few learning outcomes that you should have from this chapter are understanding how the meaning of work evolves over time, learning key career development terms, learning about key historical events in the history of career development interventions, and identifying future trends in career development interventions. And then the fifth one is identifying ways career development interventions will evolve to address trends in the field. All right, so a little bit of context of career development in the 21st century. You'll see throughout the chapter, they talk about flattened globalization. In other words, we're working in a global economy now. We still are feeling the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in some ways, that's been good because people are learning to work better with technology, and they're also learning to work from a distance. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, and this one includes robotization and AI technologies and learning to work with those. And then we have an unprecedented employment rate, meaning that most people in our country are employed. However, we have an extremely high rate of underemployment, meaning that people don't always have work that matches their degrees. And that can be very, very frustrating. And then a lot of economic uncertainty and racial unrest. And all of these affect the workplace. There is a universal need for career planning. And the way that they talk about this in the book is that basically everyone needs some assistance with career at some point in their lives. So that's either for career planning or making choices. And as you move forward in your own career, you'll see that you get to points where you're like, "Ooh, I need to get some consultation here. I'm going to have to ask some people for advice or for some kind of help in trying to determine how I'm going to move forward in my career." We get that a lot from our alumni, but certainly career planning is something every person needs. Counselor attitudes. Despite evidence that engagement, career exploration, and planning has positive effects on school motivation and learning, also has positive effects on mental health, it is still seen as less than or easier than providing help in other areas. What you're going to see in this course is you actually have to be great at every type of counseling to be a good career counselor. You have to be a school counselor, a clinical mental health counselor, and I always laugh when I hear clinical mental health people being like, "Oh, well, that's just career counseling. You don't need skills." Wrong. There's a reason why career counselors are well paid and why they are in high demand. They not only have to have the skills of a clinical mental health counselor, because believe me, they are on the front line to see mental health issues, but they are also having to be competent in the area of career, which is a difficult area. Career Development Association, knowledge and skills. So the NCDA says that you really need to have the following knowledge and skills in these areas to develop as a career counselor. You need to know career development theory, which you're going to see is similar to, but also more extended than a lot of the basic psychological theories you may have already learned. You have to be skilled in individual and group counseling. You have to be able to find the career information. And we'll talk a little bit in this class about why that's becoming less and less stable information. You have to have good use of technology. You have to have program development, marketing, and implementation skills. You have to have career coaching and consultation skills. And then know about supervision, ethical, and legal issues beyond clinical mental health or school counseling. So both of those areas in addition to career counseling. Characteristics of career interventions. The central focus, of course, is on career intervention to help people think about how to develop and live their lives and construct meaning out of their unique life experiences. We want career counseling to be preventive, value added to people's lives. So hopefully it's going to involve a lot of decision making, but that can be complex. but we want to look at people holistically. So their self-efficacy, their life roles, their interests, values, abilities, aptitudes, family influences, cultural background, racial and ethnic diversity, economic conditions, all of those, access, ability, everything. All right. Requirements of 21st century workers are changing drastically, even like probably right now as I'm recording this video, something is changing. The global economy and high-speed communication requires that workers are constantly engaged in learning. I know myself this summer, I've taken almost 30 hours of CEUs. Have passion and curiosity about life. We want people who are constantly curious. That's going to help them to grow and to navigate the need to always be learning. Have a strong capacity to work collaboratively. So you got to work with others, work in teams, be able to think broadly about problems, but also work with others to hear what their solutions are. Balance analytical thinking with creativity. So there's that analytical mind, the logic, being able to apply that critical thinking, but also be creative, innovative, come with solutions. Research shows us that over the last 30 years, people have gotten smarter, but they become less and less creative. That's a real concern for counselors. They must possess the ability to cope with change, because change is going to be the only constant. And in fact, you'll see some emergence of some career theories like chaos theory of careers. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the semester. They have to have the ability to acquire and use career information. So people in the workplace need to know what career information's out there. They're going to need to, it's going to affect their lives, right? So they're going to need to know like a lot of information and be able to adjust quickly and use technology effectively. Now, we're experiencing, like I said, that fourth industrial revolution, which is characterized by elimination of jobs due to robotization, structural changes in work, more upper and lower jobs with fewer in the middle, and subjection to techno stress. And I put in here, for example, the infinite workday. That's like a new term. Basically, it means that you're on all the time. I know just this past weekend, I had somebody, summertime, I'm not on contract, but I had somebody ask me for a Saturday meeting, a department chair. And it wasn't really truly an emergency. It was just something they wanted to talk to me about involving tenure and promotion because I'm a tenure and promotion chair. It was not something that needed to be reactive and wild, but people are just used to us being on all the time. So they expect it. We want to think about the 360-degree context of work, the environments people are in, the mental and emotional stress, the culture where they work, their social needs and how those needs are socially met or not met in the workplace. And then again, technology. Some defining key terms. So throughout this chapter, you'll read about career development interventions, career counseling, career education, career development programs, and career development practitioners and the different types of those. So there's lots and lots of terms. These things do show up on the CP, CE, and the NCE, so they're important to know. Career counselors approach career as a lifestyle rather than limiting the definition of career to work. So they don't just think about when somebody's sitting in front of them, what kind of job do you want? They're thinking holistically about the person. What are some of your life roles? What are some of your values? And how does that play out in what kind of work you want? And then what kind of contexts are going to be healthy for you to work in? So they're thinking about that mental health, the issues maybe that the client has had in the past, whether that's substance use, whether it's actual mental health disorder. So if there's any other types of disabilities and how they can help the client learn to advocate for themselves, there's a lot to this role. So career development is a lifelong psychological and behavioral processes and contextual influences shaping one's career over the lifespan. And here, what we're looking at is really what are all the things about a person, their life role, their expression of values, the self concepts that they have. And I put in this little picture here, but um, so let's imagine you have someone presenting in front of you who identifies as male, and they say, here are some of the roles that are important to me. I'm a husband, a father. I am concerned about my work, but I'm also, close to my neighbors and they're elderly and I help them. And I'm a brother and I'm an uncle and I'm a son and my parents are aging and I still want time with my friends and I do a lot of volunteer work. And so we want to look at all those roles and how they balance out and how the workplace either contributes to or is a barrier to those. So career development interventions, those are activities provided in a variety of formats, individual, group, computer delivery, that empower people to cope effectively with career development tasks. So this can be anything from helping them develop their self-awareness. So imagine a person who's having trouble in the workplace. They're passed over time and again for promotions. They may need a little self-awareness, right? Occupational awareness. Maybe you have somebody who realizes that their position is going to be terminated due to AI, and they want to know what other opportunities are out there that they may be skilled and ready for. Decision-making skills. How am I going to make a decision? How am I going to take all this information I'm given and pare it down so that I can actually make a great career decision? Acquiring job search skills. You've got to know how to navigate these different sites, which ones are important and reliable and valid, and which ones aren't, and then helping people to hone their job search skills. And that also can include things like developing resumes, cover letters. That may sound like not as fun or exciting or intriguing, but once people get into resumes, that is actually kind of a load of fun, really, to see people think about the things that they have done that might be exciting and add to their career um, trajectory, or the things that they really still need to do in terms of skilling. We want to adjust to choices, help clients adjust to their choices after they implement them, and cope with stress because work-related stress will not go away. Career counseling is a formal relationship. It is a professional counselor with a master's degree, often well beyond the master's degree. Some will actually have to have a PhD. So that is a requirement of some career counseling positions. And of course, they are going to have that mental health background. In fact, Dr. Manton and I right now are working on a mental health and career development monograph for the National Career Development Association that looks at the DSM categories and how they present in the workplace and how to work with clients through their career issues related to their mental health. And so these things are very intertwined. And if you think about it, you're going to realize why. Where do people spend most of their day? Well, it's at work, right? So if you're spending 8 hours a day, 40 plus hours a week invested in something, that's probably more time than you have with your partner or with friends or with family. So we want to help clients to think about their lives, like I have said, holistically and developmentally. So that includes establishing rapport, just like you would in any counseling situation, assessing the client's concerns, establishing goals, and then using effective intervention. And just like we have taught you integrative approaches to clinical mental health counseling, you're going to be using interventions that are based on the same approach to career counseling. Every theory is not for every client. All right, career education. This is the systematic attempt to influence the career development of students, particularly in K-12 settings. But now we're starting to see a lot of colleges and universities adopt career curriculum, whether it's a 1-hour class or through more structured opportunities with the Career Center. But in these courses, people are learning information about occupations, about themselves through assessment, and then how they relate to the academic curriculum that each student is subscribed to. So if you're in a STEM curriculum, looking at the occupational information from those careers. For example, a person majoring in biology might need to look at the breadth of career opportunities available, not just graduate school, but actual work with that degree. All right, career development programs are programs of counselor coordinated information and experience designed to facilitate career development. There's usually goals, objectives, activities, and methods for evaluating the effectiveness of the activities. And we will be covering that a little bit later in the semester. Career development practitioners. They can be psychologists. There are actually specializations in career psychology. That is a doctoral degree, and they work in private practice. I'm so sorry. University counseling centers, corporate settings, and community-based agencies. So in corporate settings, of course, they're there to help clients maximize their efficiency in the workplace, helping to determine ways to motivate workers, a lot like an IO psychologist, but working more individually with clients. LPCs, master's or doctoral degree. And then there's going to be what we call a career development facilitator. There are other words for it, but usually this is a person with a bachelor's degree and they've gotten approved provider hours to work primarily in employment centers. That's employment counseling. It's a little bit differently. That's just more of a trait and factor approach, which we'll talk about shortly. And then maybe some schools and post-secondary settings, but these are people who generally have a bachelor's degree plus 120 clock hours. So they are not at the level of a professional counselor who's doing career counseling or that career psychologist. All right, lots of misconceptions about career counseling. I have a lot of clinical mental health students tell me it's not real counseling, which I always laugh at. And so does the rest of the faculty, because we actually know they tend to be more skilled than other areas of counseling. I said it and I meant it. And the reason is because not only do they have to address mental health issues that clients have, but they also have to address their career issues. So they require a lot of skills, but there's this myth that somehow career counselors are less sophisticated or that it's separate from mental health counseling. You will be doing career counseling if you're a mental health counselor. I cannot say it enough. You will be doing career counseling because guess what makes people depressed and anxious? Yeah, work. That's right. So if you think that you're never going to need this, think again. Think about how much stress is related to people's work. So if you're one of the people who thinks, hey, I don't need to learn this, I'm only going to do trauma work, or I'm only going to do da 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 da. Well, traumas happen in the workplace. So guess what? You better learn this because you're going to need it. All right. So there's these myths that we somehow don't have these skills and techniques, but of course we do. And the focus of counseling is to increase life satisfaction, just like with clinical mental health counseling. We want people to live a better life. Clients need a high level of self-awareness to translate their experiences into meaningful career choices. And finally, with career development interventions, people need help in clarifying their values, life role salience. We'll talk about what that is when we get to Donald Super, but basically which life roles are most predominant for me right now, and how is that jiving with my career or not? Their interests and their motivation. Not everybody's as motivated as others. Many clients come to career counseling with psychological distress. We see that quite often. Low self-esteem, weak efficacy, and I would add to this depression and anxiety. Effective interventions are holistic, so they're going to address all life and work roles and mental health, and they're provided developmentally. So career counselors really have to know the whole lifespan. So we're not just thinking about what's presenting today, but what's coming down the road. Effective interventions help children, adolescents, and adults, and that's been shown by research over and over again. So we are also working with people on some of their executive functioning, learning to use both rational and intuitive approaches, basically learning some of those developmental skills of like how to think for yourself through a problem that you're going to have to solve again and again throughout your career. We want people to cope with ambiguity and change. You may know people who struggle with that. That's what career counselors help with. Develop and maintain that awareness and develop and maintain occupational and career awareness. So they are going to be on top of what's available to the client. Systematic career interventions should start early in life, early and often. I always say, like, you wouldn't want somebody to take calculus who had never learned anything about numeracy. It builds over time. It is developmental, just like mental health skills are developmental. So we want people to have not only the understanding of what a career is, what people do day to day, but how to find that information and use it effectively, and then how to match that to their own personality, their own interest, their own values, and their aptitudes, and then be able to execute getting work in those areas. So finding the education and training needed, all of that. So it's a lot, really. One of the things the book addressed is ways in which work has changed across time and the meaning of work. And you may see this with people who are in a different generation than you. So, for example, individuals in primitive society view work as necessary for survival. Early Christians saw it as a way to share with others about their beliefs. Middle Ages, it was spiritual purification, so laziness was like, the place where the devil was working. In the Protestant Reformation, work was a way to serve God. By the 19th century, we see self-sufficiency, self-discipline, all that determination starting to emerge in the work literature. By the 20th century, we want people to find a fit for a long-term career, but that fit was generally based on the traits that they had. For example, an aptitude. So if you were really good at mechanical things, we'd put you in a career using your mechanical skills. But by the 21st century, and this is really from about Generation X through millennials and Gen Z, there's this means of using work for self-fulfillment. So people want to have joy about their work. They want to feel like their work is contributing and things that are important to them, versus maybe, let's say, the boomers who wanted work, to help pay for living. A lot of the boomers were brought up in the shadow of the Great Depression. And so you can see a lot of boomers saying things like, hey, they just need to get to work. They just need to buckle down, pull themselves up by the bootstraps and get working. Those kind of old ways of thinking about work are very, very different from what we hear today. People want something they feel passionate and excited about. Work tends to be linked with a person's self-worth. So if you already have somebody who doesn't feel very worthy due to attachment injuries from childhood, adverse childhood experiences, any of those things, then work can be another trigger. And there is a lot of research on this, but work provides good social interactions, hopefully for people, fulfillment of social personal needs, and a sense of personal identity. So we hope it's positive and it continues to help people. However, there are some problems with it. When we link work with self-worth, we also see that there are individuals who have unrealistic expectations for their work. And we see this all the time at the college level. People come in like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. But realistically, they haven't really done great career exploration. They're not prepared for the academic rigor of those programs. And over time, that can really hurt their self perception. Maybe I'm not that smart. Maybe I'm not this or that, you know. Um, a lot of individuals who link their work with their worth can feel that their skills are underutilized and they feel unable to manage numerous career transition tasks. So, if you already don't feel like you're doing well in the work that you're in, it can be really hard when careers are transitioning, things are changing quickly to keep up with all of that. Important events, Frank Parsons, this is the guy. So lots about him post World War II and working with the YMCA. So Frank was a really interesting individual, and his trait and factor approach became actually the foundation of career development. Donald Super is a person that we point to from the 1960s and 70s who had a huge influence on the developmental aspects of career. And Donald Super really looked at people's careers across their lifespan. So his lifespan, life space theory talks a lot about what it means to have a career that starts maybe when you're a child or an adolescent and goes throughout past your retirement, really. So when we talk about Parsons, we develop a clear understanding of Parsons wanting people to have a true knowledge of their aptitudes, their abilities. He did want them to know about their interests, but that was not as predominant for him. What can you do? What can you do well? What are you able to do? And then how do we link you to a job where you can do that? Now, because of one's psychological characteristics, each worker is best suited for a type of work. That was what Frank Parsons would say. So he would look at the characteristics a person had, and this could be types of intelligence, it could be the type of work that they already had some skills for, and then he would want to find the characteristics that required for successful job performance within a particular job. Oh, and one key thing here is that Parsons thought occupational choice is a single point in time event. And you have to remember that the world he was in the 1940s and 50s, people usually picked one career and they stayed in it and they stayed with the same company. So career development for Parsons was mostly cognitive and rational decision making. And occupational adjustment was basically based on work characteristics. So you're skilling. In later developments, though, we saw a lot more testing developed throughout the earlier part of the 20th century and on through the 1960s and 70s. Formation of the Department of Labor, which we know now as the U.S. Bureau of Labor, Vocational Rehab Act, NVGA, which is now the National Career Development Association, formation of U.S. Employment Service, and the first edition of Dictionary of Occupational Titles, which became the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So continuing on, more and more career assessments developed. Computer-assisted career planning started in the 60s. Career education as a national priority, I would say, actually began before that in 1958. With the National Defense Education Act. So I would place that a little bit before, especially as they were looking for people who were strong in math and science skills to work for NASA in the race to space. And then attention to career development of diverse populations really didn't start until the 1990s. So a lot of the theories you're going to read about initially were very male and Eurocentric. In the 21st century, a lot of the trends we're seeing is global unemployment, corporate downsizing, rising trends toward part-time work, where people are only being offered part-time work or contractual work, more dual careers, so homes with two people working, people working from home. It's one of the reasons I like this picture, both the child and the mom or caregiver working from home right there together. Intertwining of work and family roles. So we're starting to see, people want their partners, they want their families to know about their work. They want, they don't just clock in for the day, leave for the day, and then not talk about their work. It becomes a part of who they are. And this creates this kind of intertwining. So who's going to be home to cook dinner tonight? Who's going to be home on the weekend? Who's going to, so people's lives have become busier, more hectic, and work has to fit with those other roles. Many job shifts that we'll see. So occupations are changing quickly, and there's a need for lifelong learning. So constantly being a learner in your field. And then social media presence. So that is making a huge impact in career as well, both the negative and the positive sides of it. And then constructing responsive interventions in the 21st century, we want to view career decisions as value-based, and I would add to that interest-based, offer counseling-based career assistance. So we want to move beyond assessment. When people come in for an assessment, that is just one tiny task in the larger view of career counseling. Provide multicultural career interventions. So we want to think about, where's a person from? Are they undocumented? Is that going to be something that needs to be addressed? Are they considered in some way a minority or an underrepresented group? Are they a person with a disability? And is that an issue that we need to look at in terms of self-advocacy and disclosure? And then they put sexual orientation here. I would just put like gender inclusivity. So I would have not used that term, sexual orientations, but anyway, that's what the authors chose. I would say being just gender inclusive in general and thinking about how gender is affecting a person's life, how their pronouns, how their view of self is either a match for the environment they're in or not. And that has become a really big issue politically. And so it may also be in the workplace. Focus on multiple life roles, and then seek to incorporate social justice and advocacy. And you're going to hear a lot about that in this course. And you're going to learn how to do it. All right. So for now, this is the end of this recording, and I'll be back with the next PowerPoint.